Larry Mellott from Guelph Memorial Gardens rolls through to the goaltender, scores! Comes back out in front and ramming it home was Todd Halushko, the rookie from Guelph. Noseworthy with it in the corner. Noseworthy trying to work it in front, scores! Fed it across in front. It looked like Moore intended to be a pass, went into the corner.
Now Perfetti holding on to it, leaves it for Solovyov. Shot, scores! Hillis drops it back to Gordeev. Gordeev shoots, the save, the rebound. It's loose in front. They score! Out to Gordeev. Gordeev with a shot, the save, the rebound. Ralph scores! Cedric Ralph again!
Both teams have scored 17 goals in this series, and I think the Storm are happy that they finally reached a series where it's tied 2-2. I understand no team in the OHL has ever come back from a 2-0 deficit in two series in one playoff year.
Now we want to honor Larry Mellott, the radio voice of the Guelph Storm on CJOY. It's Larry Day today.
And on behalf of your Storm, Rick is presenting Larry with a team jersey recognizing his 1800th game as the voice of the team.
For the fourth time in their history, the Guelph Storm are Ontario Hockey League champions!
He's one of the league's longest-serving broadcasters. The voice of the Guelph Storm, Larry Mellott, joins OHL Voices. Larry's been calling Guelph sports since way back in 1974, I believe, and has been providing action over the airwaves of the Storm since day one back in 1991. Larry, thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Josh, and I'm amazed that you pulled that 1974 one out of the hat, too. Back in those days, I was doing the play-by-play for the Guelph Platers and sharing duties with Norm Jerry, who's a former New York Rangers TV broadcaster. And the highlight of that one would be the 1978 Centennial Cup victory.
Yeah, it's been a long time in Guelph. You've seen a lot and been a real integral part of the city's sports scene. You put in over 30 years at CJ Radio before retiring from sort of the weekday grind over at the station. The Storm, though, they keep you coming back, and you're still providing the call. And maybe you can give us a little bit of background on your time just in Guelph and how you came to call the hockey games.
Well, it started with Norm Jerry in the early 70s, and actually it's been closer to 40 years here at CJOY. I worked with him and started doing color commentary with him, and then eventually we shared the play-by-play duties. And if you're going to have a mentor, boy, what a treat to have a mentor who's a former NHL play-by-play guy. And Norm Jerry, for his sake, was the mayor of the city, the news and sports director here at the radio station. And he wound up with the Rangers because he was doing Biltmore Hatters play-by-play when the general manager was a guy named Emile Francis. And, of course, Emile wound up with the New York Rangers, and the rest of that is history.
The Storm have certainly given you your share of high-stakes hockey over the years, you know, winning 4 championships and being a part of 5 Memorial Cup tournaments. Six, yeah, pardon me. There's been no shortage of great memories, I'm sure, and some good ones like a few of those Robertson Cup victories, but also some heartbreakers like 1998 and the 2014 Memorial Cup. I'm sure you would agree it's been time well spent.
Absolutely. And if you talk about the down times, sort of, 1996, a memorable playoff series with the Peterborough Petes, when the home team never won a game. And it went to overtime in Game 7, and unfortunately for the Storm, they had home ice advantage. And I kind of chuckled to this day when we went into Peterborough for Game 6. Then Pete's coach, Dave McQueen, as we were arriving at the arena, was putting his team in the bus. And I was sitting behind assistant coach Rick Elaine and said, "What are they doing?" And I said, "If I'm reading this correctly, they're simulating a road trip, hoping that it would work." Well, it didn't that night, but they came back and won in Game 7 in overtime. And I never in a million years would have predicted an 8-7 hockey game when the goaltenders were Dan Cloutier for the Storm, Zach Berg for Peterborough, guys that went on to play in the NHL.
Yeah, there's been a lot of big names that have come through the Storm organization in the city of Guelph in your time. Obviously, you know, Jeff O'Neill and Todd Bertuzzi, right down through names like Manny Malhotra, Drew Doughty, and more recent guys, Nick Suzuki, Isaac Ratcliffe. You've had the chance to see some of the game's greats. It's not really fair to put you on the spot and ask if you've had a favorite Storm player from over the years, but maybe you can think of a few.
Well, I was going to say Ryan Callahan right off the top. And Ryan, because he came in here as a very late OHL draft pick. and not a lot expected of him in training camp. But he made himself known right away because he'd go into the corner and puck battles and maybe be the smaller guy going into that corner at around 5'10", and he'd always come out with the puck. And I never saw over the years a guy work harder than he did, shift in, shift out, went into the NHL camp with the New York Rangers, and they were going to, I think, sign him, and if memory serves me right, send him to the ECHL. He thought an overage year would work better. He came back here to Guelph, scored 3 goals in the first period of his first game back, wound up with a 52-goal season, and then went from there. So Ryan Callahan would top my list. Drew Doughty, Manny Malhotra, you mentioned, Chris Madden, who was the goaltender and MVP of the tournament, even though they lost in Portland. Most recently, Nico Dawes. This team overachieved, speaking of goaltending, and winning in 2019 because Nico Dawes became an elite goaltender.
There's certainly something to be said for the camaraderie among OHL broadcasters. Yourself, Fred Wallace up in Owen Sound, Jimmy Gilchrist over in Kingston, and a handful of others have been around this league for a long time now. I'm sure it's always nice to cross paths with those guys and catch up on the game and on life in general.
Well, Fred Wallace in particular and I are pretty good friends. We do a little bit of long distance running together. There's a run in Owen Sound each August. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do it this year because of the pandemic. Half marathon for the Owen Sound Hospital. And he's beaten me in the races we've run. I just admitted that, didn't I? But always fun to see Fred run, play golf, or, of course, hockey broadcasts.
Well, we've delved into the past a fair bit, but the Storm's recent history has been fairly impressive. I mean, after all, they're the reigning OHL champions, even though that seems like it was a decade ago. But, I mean, Mike Kelly laid a bit of the groundwork before calling it a career. And, of course, George Burnett came in and put that program over the top. A big physical Storm team with a lot of character. I'm sure every Storm championship team has elements that stick out with you, but the way that 2019 group just constantly came back from the brink certainly made them memorable.
It did. It was unique. I talked about the 1996 series and losing, the 2019 and winning. I don't know. In all honesty, I don't know how many times I counted them out myself. When you're trailing the London Knights 3-0 in a series, you usually don't come back. That was a good Saginaw team to come back from 3-1. The Ottawa team to come back from 2-0. When they issued the rings, the championship rings in the fall after that season, the inscription in the ring read, "Come back, kids," justifiably so. And I know a lot of people kind of wondered about the number of trades, because when you go back and take a look, they added Pavel Gogolev, Mackenzie Entwistle, with 4 guys from Owen Sound, Fedor Gordeev. That's a lot of new blood into the team. But as it turned out, they were all not only very good hockey players, they just fit in nicely with the team. And it didn't seem like there was a great transition from them switching over to their old teams to the new one.
Well, coming down off that championship high, the Storm, at least in my opinion, they did some great things in their title defense, coming away with 32 wins, a goaltender of the year in Nico Dawes, and really, by all accounts, a competitive season from a group that maybe a few people were unsure of at the beginning of the year. Did you come away pleased with how the club performed in the shortened season?
Absolutely. I wasn't sure. I knew it would be battle to make the playoffs, but the thing was about Nico Dawes developing into an elite goalie. And then beyond that, Pavel Gogolev, a 96-point season. Eric Yuba was a great addition from Flint, a solid two-way player. Cam Hillis spent that championship season mostly injured, healthy last season, and team captain and leader on and off the ice. And then Fedor Gordeev unexpectedly returning as an overage defenseman. So all of those elements helped make it a better season than people expected.
With guys like Cedric Ralph and potentially Cam Hillis and a few of the last, big pieces of that 2019 championship team moving on, did the Storm turn a page headed into the 2021 season? It seems there are some eager young players with a lot to prove, like Daniel Chayka and Danny Zhilkin, and another guy of Russian descent in Andrei Bakanov, who made a really good first impression, and all those guys are coming back into the lineup.
Absolutely, they are. So there will be some good young talent. There will be overagers in Keegan Stevenson, and we think Eric Yuba. Pavel Gogolev, I would think, would be a long shot if he doesn't sign a free agent deal with an NHL team. I wouldn't be surprised to see him wind up in Europe. Who's that league? Nico Dawes. And I don't think Nico Dawes is going to be back here as an overager. So it will be a younger team that will have basically 2 returning players from the 2019 championship season. And that would be Keegan Stevenson. And then the only other one, potentially Pavel Gogolev, and missing somebody, Daniel Chayka on defense. And that would be it. So you talk about a rebuild, 2020, 2021 is going to be more of a rebuild than last year was.
Well, the Storm they've certainly perfected that the last couple of development cycles, just turning out highly competitive squads with, a couple championships to show for it in the last decade or so. So, we're continuing to look ahead to 2021, and we'll see how things unfold in the weeks and months to come. I'm sure you're having an interesting fall, not calling Storm games for the first time in almost, 30 years. How are you filling the hours right now?
Well, right now I'm basically retired except for doing hockey. So I'm just biding my time waiting, babysitting a 4-year-old grandson, which may be more hectic than doing hockey play-by-play.
Well, let's keep looking ahead, Larry. Thanks for joining me today. It was nice to hear some of the stories and hear all about your career and life around the Storm. Hopefully we'll see you again at the rink real soon.
Absolutely, Josh, and hopefully sooner rather than later.
Thank you, sir. We'll talk to you